Leave your comments on the Ask Reddit sub, and I'll read your answers on the next episode of LWIAR 2. A popular saying is nothing I ever lost on the internet, but what is something you have been searching for years and you haven't found it yet? An Antique Roadshow episode where the appraiser asked the owner if they had cleaned the priceless Milanese helm. They responded, "I hit it with a lil lemon pledge," and the appraiser visibly shivers. This type of thing is what I live to see on Antiques Roadshow. Related, I remember an episode where this guy thinks he has a rare and valuable trunk from the Ming period. I think. And it turns out it's not only a crappy fake, it's riddled with boron. I love the opposite ones. Like the guy with the Yuan Dynasty cast bronze urn using it as a doorstop. Same here. Did you ever see the one where an old man has a blanket that he's used for a couch throw and it turns out to be Geronimo's? It was worth around 100k if I remember correctly. He started crying because he has never had anything worth anything before. It looks like the appraiser who was fired eventually went to prison for other crimes. Was he 39 or 46? Who edited this? Yet another unsavory chapter has been added to the life story of former auction company owner Russell A.A. Pritchard III, 39, who plied his trade in an exclusive Philadelphia suburb before the FBI caught up with him. Pritchard III, 46, was already serving a 4 to 8-year prison term for crimes. They just take an extremely long time to write articles. Priceless Milanese helm, formerly priceless, it sounds like. Or simply priceless. But I don't have a question. There was this game on Windows 3.1 similar to the board game Life. You allocate a time each day to studies, work, and rec in order not to end up a bum on the street or dead. Could it be Jones in the fast lane? Here's a video about it by LWIAR, u2.be. Holy crap, that's it. OMG, thank you! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Damn, you can even play it online. Wow, the internet, man, blows my mind every day. Some obscure 90s DOS game is not only able to get downloaded on DOSBox and replayed, but has its own website and can be played in browser. Glad to help. I've never played it myself. Crap like this is why I love Reddit so much. I tried to find the browser games I played when I was a kid. Some of them no longer exist. LostMediaWiki.com. I sank an embarrassing amount of hours into Flash games as a kid in the early 2000s. I remember a website called Addicting Games, which would post new games every day per week or something. The internet before big streaming sites like YouTube was weird. Ever go on Shockwave? That's where I spent all of 2001. I ran into the guy who made addictinggames.com IRL earlier in the year, and he was really excited that he'd been able to buy it back and was working on it again. They were even looking to hire more people to port the old Flash stuff to HTML5 plus JavaScript. So check out the site again. This is great news. Miniclip was my crap. I like Congregate. It was cool how there was game chats and badges, achievements. IDK if they were legit, but Congregate also had sweepstakes. Armor games for me. All the crappy Fruity Loops music I made in my early 20s that was on MySpace. I'm sad that they lost so many memories from MySpace. But I am also relieved that there is no online record of my early 20s. The universe basically did all of our generation a huge solid. We're the last ones that get our embarrassing crap buried. Meanwhile, current kids' cringy TikToks and YouTube rants will be here forever. Around 1999 I had borrowed a digital camera from school and took a lot of pictures of friends and stuff. It was back when people really didn't carry around cameras except for special activities. I remember uploading them to my brother's university Unix shell account to share with some people. But when he graduated and that account closed, I lost access and didn't have any backups. Really wish I still had those photos. Nobody has them. I've been there, man. I was doing some data recovery on my mother's old computer after she passed away and came across a partial backup I don't remember making of a memory card I'd lost back in 1999. Handful of pictures of my friends and I that I'd been sure were gone for good. Just wish I had the rest. Back in 2006, a hard drive of mine stopped working. which was a huge blow because it had almost every picture I'd ever taken, scanned, stored on it, along with a lot of other important documents. But for some reason, I held on to it for years in the hope that one day I'd be able to save up the money to get it professionally recovered, which can cost thousands. About 5 years later, I came across a forum post where someone talked about recovering info from a dead hard drive by replacing the drive's logic board with an exact copy from a working one. Figuring I had nothing to lose, I hunted down the exact same model firmware version on eBay, bought it for $11, and about a week later swapped out the boards. And to my immense surprise, it worked. The BIOS recognized it, and when I booted into Windows, the OS recognized it, too. Opening those folders was like opening a time capsule, and everything was just as I'd left it. Opening those folders was like opening a time capsule, and everything was just as I'd left it. And GT, be me and GT, be home for the holidays and GT, airline lost my luggage and GT, only computer in the house is Sony Vaio from high school and GT, password still the same frick yeah and GT, open it and see Firefox is open and GT, Napster and Audacity are open and GT, HS playlist is open and GT, old essays and projects in Explorer open and GT, AIM is open. Waves of nostalgia washed over me. What a trip. Around 12 to 13 years ago, I got into StumbleUpon, which was a Firefox extension that adds a button to your screen that takes you to a random page that someone marked as interesting. Once, I found a flash animation that portrayed a recreation of a white hat hacker doing a penetration test on a web application. The whole thing was a Linux command shell without any GUI. It started with an IRC chat where someone asks the hacker to look into his application and send him a URL and another URL for the source code. After a sped-up 3 minutes of curl, grep, and SSH, the hacker built a command line script that can pull any username and email from the site. Never found it again. Thanks, you, Zalmiak, for finding the video. It's called 0 Day by MILW0 Room. Sounds like this. 0 Day SQL injection, which was published on the now-defunct website MILW0 Room. www.youtube.com. As someone who writes SQL for work and has looked over the shoulder of the DBA a few times enough to have a super basic grasp of Unix, I would love for someone to give an explanation of what's being done here. You have a great question and I wanted to take the time to give you a play-by-play versus the whole. Draw a circle, then draw the rest of the owl crap. Also, before Butthole calls me a noob or makes fun of me for giving a play-by-plan on low hanging fruit, this is meant for educational purposes only, not as some weird flex. I get that this is Security 101, but most people fail at it, so I'm gonna do it anyway. STFU gets site plus source code T. 27s gets job on IRC to audit a PHP CMS content management system that's custom, is forwarded a link to the site source. It's worth noting that if you have the source code to something, you've got a huge head start. To use a lock-picking analogy, it's effectively having the blueprint to the lock. Linux pen testing distro T79s logs into what I would perceive to be a pen testing, penetration testing version of Arch Linux to do their work. Maybe an early version of Black Arch. There are a ton of Linux distributions that are pre-built with a ton of tools for pen testing. My preferred distro is typically Kali for this sort of work. Downloads source code via Link's browser and unzips T87's downloads a zip archive of the source code of the target website via a CLI command line interface. Browser called Links and unzips the archive contents. Looks for post data T120s, starts to grep the code base for post and variations of it. This is simply just searching text in PHP. $_post is how you get access to variables that are passed to a web server from a client browser. The best way to think about this is to form fields. What the attacker is doing here is looking for how data goes into the PHP web application, which they will then exploit later. They then look for where post data is assigned to variables in PHP within the web application. They then use what are called pipe characters to search their search results. You see this when they're looking for it. They pipe the output of one grep command into another grep command to drill down further on their results. In plain English, they're looking for lines of code that may be of interest to figure out where they want to attack. Finds unsanitized input used in SQL queries T146. They use the Nano text editor, CLI text editor, to start poking around files that were returned in the above searches. They find what's called unsanitized input, which is where the web application uses data that was passed to it directly in SQL queries to access the database. This is horribly bad practice because it allows someone to put SQL code in the data that's being submitted to the application, since you can submit whatever you want to a website from a client, browser, another program, etc. You can modify the data you submit to the application. When you're targeting the database like they are in this attack, this is known as SQL injection, or injecting SQL where it shouldn't go. This application in specific trusts whatever input that goes into the post data to go directly into the SQL queries that interact with the database. Tests improper input via links browser T196 is they then use links again, but this time use it to browse the website and find where one of those post data form fields is, specifically the FAQ ID 1. They then enter text, where an integer, number, is expected and see MySQL warnings, errors which are now being output to the HTML of the web page. This indicates that what they found in the previous steps is correct. Bad input is trusted. It's also a good solution for getting data out of the web application. Errors can often expose debugging unexpected data, which can be a goldmine for an attacker. They don't end up leveraging this for output, but it's worth noting IMO finds database schema structure T214s. They then grep for SQL create statements which show the structure of the tables that their database uses. This gives them an idea of what columns they need to query for to get information out of the database. The table create statements are included with the source code that he downloaded, so it makes it incredibly easy to figure out what they need to query. They open the .SQL files with Nano and grab the user columns that they're interested in while verifying the structure of the FAQ items table. This will help them write the injected SQL. Prepares pre-built PHP script for SQL injection attack T248. They copy a PHP script that's pre-built SQL injection, post PHP, to BXCP. Still a PHP script minus the .php extension, and modify it to call the proper FAQ URL that they found is exploitable. They then target the FAQ_id part of the post data and write some custom SQL. This PHP script is designed to make a web request just like a browser would. Here's where things get SQL-early. Ha ha ha, I'm lame. They swap the expected FAQ ID out with 0, and add on a union select that allows the result of one SQL query to be merged with that of another. They then select user IDs, nicknames, usernames, and the hash password from the users table, limiting the returned results to 10. Performs SQL injection and gets results T317s. They then run the BXCP PHP script from the CLI, dumping the results into a text file, dump HTML, using shell redirection, greater than, takes the output of a command and saves it to a text file. They then go through the dump HTML file with Nano and find that the PHP web application wrote their results of their injected SQL in the HTML that it uses to show items on a page. The attack was successful, and they now have the data they were looking for. I'll cut off here because this took way longer than I anticipated to write, but they then do some regular expression matching via PHP, getting data out of strings of text, loop through the results, and display the data to the CLI in a clean fashion. Edit. Gender neutralized. 12 to 13 years ago, I got into StumbleUpon. I can't help you but wanted to relate. StumbleUpon was revolutionary in the late '00s, especially since you could tick off the kind of content you're into and then take off clicking, without any kind of community surrounding the content curation. And it still looks like crap. Looks a little better but functions a little worse. What color is Groglin Gray? Grandfather always talked about painting his house Groglin Gray, but I can find no reference for it. Found a mention of Groglin Gray in some random book on Google Books. As dusk approaches, the sky becomes a certain color gray. Might ye know the name of that color? She shook her head. Why, that be called Groglin Gray, he answered smartly. Groglin Gray, she exclaimed, scrunching her nose and eyeing him in disbelief. Catherine stiffened, turning slightly, knowing what was coming next yet was unable to stop it. Why, little lass, your education be lacking for sure. Groglin Gray is, of course, he paused for emphasis, the exact color of a she-mouse's fart. Edit. Actual answer in this book. Holy frick, I am crying. I fully expected this to be some sort of shitty morph joke and I clicked the link and that's actually what it says. I sincerely hope this is what the poster's grandfather was referring to, searching and searching. To no avail when it was a joke about a mouse's fart. This seems like the exact kind of thing my grandfather would say tbh. He would find that whole passage hilarious and would absolutely throw the term "groglin grey" around for years, hoping for someone to ask him what that is so that he could finally say the punchline. So I totally believe this is what the grandfather was talking about. Edit. Also check autocorrect before going to bed, kids. Yikes. Back to bark. You should try and contact the author and see if they can provide insight. WTF lol. Sounds like Op was bamboozled by his grandfather. Lol. I googled groglin grey and it brought me to this old Reddit thread where you commented the same thing you've been looking for a long time. Yes, someday, if I keep asking, maybe I'll discover what color groglin grey is. Thanks for sharing this. Start contacting paint companies. They always have at least one old dude in the technical department who knows all their old colors. Go through enough companies and eventually you'll find the one that used to produce that color. Edit. To those who say it won't work, well, you may be right, but the above is something that can be tried. Let's hold out hope rather than giving up so easily. Anecdotally, I have found several colors by this method from Akzo Nobel, PPG architectural coatings and Fleetwood paints for customers I've been trying to help. It's also failed plenty of times. But if you never try then you fail every time. An electronic copy of the Machine Gun Dealer's Bible, which I bet a coworker years ago I could find, in an effort to prevent myself from owing him $5. I am still looking for it. I was a stupid kid. My school's librarian is named Isabel Nis. Not gonna finish the name. But I thought ISBN was a cool way of writing her name. Until I went to other libraries and saw it. Was like, oh, it's probably not about her. Edit. Highest rated comment ever on a throwaway I forgot to log out of LMFAO. And of course it's about me having a void for a brain. Back in the 2000s I was eagerly awaiting the release of the latest Harry Potter book. At the time there was a theory going around that a copy of the book was released for Obama's Bush's kids to read or something like that, and it had leaked onto the internet. This led to teenage me searching high and low for it and finally coming across a downloadable 600+ page book. I spent days reading it on my family's PC. It was amazing and I had it early. It wasn't till Harry and Ginny had sex together for the first time that I realized I was probably not reading the real book. Still, it was good. I finished the book and was shocked when the real one came out and shared a lot of similar storyline minus the sex, of course. My first dip into fanfic. Edit to say that I hope this fanfic reaches those who seek it. Happy reading. Clearly you found the raunchier rough draft. J.K. Rowling wrote all those novels with tons of sex. The editors just took it out. That's what made the chemistry so great. Yeah, Nick wasn't nearly as headless as they'd have you believe. A saved Reddit post which was a collection of paranormal, creepy AskReddit threads which I accidentally removed from my saved posts. Thanks for watching LWIAR 2. The best of all time r/AskReddit submissions and comments. If you like this video, check out the original LWIAR channel. And don't forget to like and subscribe.